Ask for some substitutions by alternates for regular board members. I'll ask Mr. Milnes to sit in for Mrs. Morrison. I'll ask Mr. Jones to sit in for Mr. Bonislavsky, and Mr. Shepard to sit in for
Commissar.
Pardon?
Steve Commissar.
Steve Commissar. Thank you. So we all are voting members this evening. And I expect Mr. Koenig will be along in a bit. So what's the pleasure of the board? First, we'll take up the minutes of September the 5th. What's the pleasure of the board with regard to that set of minutes? Mr. Segedy.
Approve with the following modification. I don't know whether we got to this at a previous meeting or not, but on page 5, under B, the second paragraph, next to last line, add the, and then after town meeting, add the words to approve it.
We did that last time.
So, did we get to that?
We did that last time.
Okay, so that was already taken care of, and as it was last time, then move to approve.
That is corrected.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Milnes. Do we have discussion? No discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of September the 5th? Like one correction. Any opposed or abstaining? None. All were in favor. The minutes of September the 5th are approved without change. Next, we have the minutes of September the 19th. What's the pleasure of the board, Dr. Segedy?
Move to approve as submitted.
Who is second to this motion? Seconded by Mr. Milnes. Discussion of the motion. No discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to approve the minutes of September 19th as submitted?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstaining? Mr. Jones abstained. Others voted in favor. The minutes of September the 19th are approved as submitted.
I was not present.
Understand. Next on the agenda is item 3 is the Planning and Zoning Administrator's Weekly Report.
Mr. Chairman, just a few quick updates on enforcement actions the department is pursuing. We will have our day in court, if you will, with Mid-City Paving regarding injunctive relief to their landscaping materials operation on Monday. And sometime thereafter, we should have decision from the court. Also, I understand, although I wasn't present last week, there were some questions regarding signage at Emerald Island Auto, which is the replacement entity for Route 3 auto sales. As it turns out, the police department was with parking along the frontage of that operation, and suggested that perhaps signage might help. The business owner took a different opinion, if you will, or a different view of signage than the police department might have intended. So we have been working with the business owner and the police department to try and find the proper solution there. And I guess just one last follow-up regarding the difficulty of some of these enforcement actions. We still are chasing one of the principals in our case against Empire Auto in pursuit of the collection of our settlement with that party. I guess one other update. There has been a recent change in statutory language made by the legislature to replace the permissive phrase regarding violators may be assessed of up to $275 a day with stronger language that says that they shall assess penalties of $275 a day for a first offense. So hopefully that will help the cause of hapless enforcement agents like me. Certainly supported by many municipalities around the state.
Yeah. Questions for Walter? Mr. Milnes?
Just on the subject of Emerald Isle Auto, and you're obviously talking to the police department, it might be worth pointing out to them that it's not very clever to do a traffic stop right on the forecourt of Emerald Isle Auto.
A very difficult location for a business of that sort, as everyone in town knows.
Yeah, I very nearly creamed a police car the other afternoon.
I'm glad you didn't.
Dr. Segedy.
Has there anything been done yet about some sort of change in our regulations to restrict the off-site flow of water other than the drainage facilities? because this is our second year now of trying to get something on that, and nothing has happened.
We have had some recommendations or suggestions come in from a consulting engineer regarding stormwater management, and I'm awaiting a review, if you will, and some conclusive recommendations from DPW on the subject. Certainly I'm no expert in stormwater management or drainage. We also have a meeting scheduled early next month with the EPA to talk about some of those stormwater management issues as well.
Well, seeing that this has gone on for 2 years, and there is a rather simple way to at least give the same relief that is given for downstream drainage facilities just by including everything else with it. And it's, only a few words change in the regulations will take care of that, and we could do that and still await for a comprehensive solution. I mean, we're 2 years into this already.
We can certainly look at it. I'm no expert, so I won't say it's simple or complicated, other than to say that I'm no expert on the subject.
It doesn't require technical expertise. It requires the engineers to certify that this will not happen, at the same way they certify that it's not going to do damage or overflow the downstream drainage facilities. Just include.
That was the language you submitted.
Yeah.
You even drafted the language. Well, I'd suggest that you clean up that language, find a way to put it into the ordinance, and bring it back for the board's consideration. I kind of agree with Mr. Segedy that it's been a long time. We've been trying to do something. This is not all-inclusive, but it is a step in the direction that we need to go. And I think we should move on it. And even if it's a partial solution to our problems. Okay.
That's all for me.
Okay, anyone else? Thank you, Walter. Thank you. Next item on tonight's agenda is item number 4, which is Dennis High, review for a possible final approval of an application proposing a 6-lot conventional subdivision in the R residential zone located at 41 Bedford Road. The parcel lies within the Aquifer Conservation District and the Wellhead Protection Area. Tax map parcel 6D/232. This item was continued from the November 14th, 2006 hearing, and we have had a submittal from, there was a meeting, I believe, conducted between Mr. High and his agents and the Department of Public Works, and they have come to at least some verbal agreements on a method of resolution of the difficulties. Remember, the difficulty had to do with the pitch of the road as it entered Bedford Road, the intersection of High Street, I think it's called, in Bedford Road, and the slopes and drainage situation at that intersection. And we had, last time we had Mr. Chase here telling us his view of things, and Mr. Warren would like to speak to the issue.
If I could summarize, Mr. Chairman, I think the board received a copy of a letter from Tom Burns, PD from Maynard and Paquette, regarding the accounting of that meeting. There was a compromise, if you will.
Yes, it was. Yeah, it was in the package.
And I would just like to confirm that there was a compromise arrived at that is accurately accounted in Mr. Burns' letter, which you received a copy of. Briefly, the solution that was agreed upon and which plans were recently delivered depicting is the negative 2% slope will be incorporated from the edge of pavement, not from the edge of the right-of-way. The platform for stacking vehicles on that negative 2% slope will be shortened to 40 feet, not required 50 feet in the regulations. This will require also a modification of the K value, if you will, at the base of, at the end of the platform before the cut begins into the rest of the property. In recognition of some of the expense and changes required to the plan, it was also agreed that given the low number of units in the subdivision, the sidewalks would not be required on both sides of the street, but rather one side of the street. So I think we have a meeting of the minds on the issue. As I say, the plans were delivered only late last week in a short week, so we do not have review comments for you, but we do have an agreement in concept, so we're just awaiting the review on that.
So, Attorney Michael, did you wish to...
I request based upon that, again, as Walter just pointed out, there's been significant work done to try and meet the compromise that the board was searching for, quite frankly. We think we've accomplished that. Ed Chase needs a bit more time to kind of finally review it. We're willing to accept that. We think the board would be interested in assuring themselves that that, in fact, is the case, so it has to be tabled, I believe, to the 19th. I think that's the next available meeting.
next available.
I think it's a fair thing to do. We've done very, very hard to try and balance this, since it is only a 6-lot subdivision, but again, we appreciate the board's concerns.
So based on that, I would entertain a motion to table further action on this until the 19th. If that's the wish of the board. It's been moved by Dr. Segedy. Do we have a second? Seconded by Mr. Gagnon. Do we have discussion?
I think anyone would say that it looks as though Mr. High and his members of his team have gone a long way to meet what Mr. Chase required, and I think it's sort of, one should be appreciative of their efforts. I think we should admit that.
Thank you. I think that's valid comment. Any other discussion of the motion to table? Being none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion to table to the 19th? Any opposed or abstaining? There were none. So thank you. Thank you, Attorney Michael. The next item on tonight's agenda is C&K Realty, Abel Crane. A review for an acceptance and consideration for a possible final approval of a request for a waiver of a full site plan review of an application to amend a previously approved site plan for a proposed 30-foot by 50-foot building addition. The parcel lies within the I-1 Industrial District and the Aquifer Conservation District, located at 12 Star Drive, tax map parcel 3D-1/010. This item is continued from the November 14th meeting. Someone here to represent the plan for C&K Realty.
Yes, there is. Good evening.
They're having a problem with
Hold it down a little bit.
We don't have the stand-up microphone tonight.
Hang on, let me move a little bit closer.
But maybe you could pull up a chair so he doesn't have to,
Yeah.
Hold that. Better?
I don't know. Speak nice and loud.
I'll shout.
Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, I'm Jeff Merritt. I'm an engineer at Keach Nordstrom Associates. We're the civil site engineers for this project. With me this evening is Carl and Kathy Hatfield. They are the owners of the property at 12 Star Drive, and they are the applicant this evening. The Hatfields own the property, which is referenced as Lot 10 on the town tax map 3D1. It's a rectangular parcel, as you can see. It's roughly an acre and 2/10 in area. And as was mentioned, it is situated entirely within the industrial zoning district. For those of you that are not familiar with this area of town where Star Drive is, there's a vicinity map in the upper right-hand corner. Star Drive is located just north of the Budweiser Brewery. The Budweiser Brewery somewhere down here. Star Drive is the next drive to the north. It is, again, an industrial district down here. The parcel, as you can see from our plan, it is developed. The Hatfields own a company called Abel Crane Services. It's a crane business. There is currently one single building on this parcel. The portion of the building that fronts along Star Street is a masonry building. There's a small protrusion to the north, which is an existing metal framed building. And then again, another protrusion on the northeast side of the building, which is an existing office, an existing office space. All totaled, we have about 8,700 square feet of storage area. for their business. This office space is about 670 square feet or so. So just over 9,000 square feet of floor area. The proposal is very simple. What the Hatfields would like to do is expand this facility ever so slightly. Specifically, what we're proposing is a 30 by 50 foot steel frame building. Now, this building would be used only for cold storage, so it would not be heated, cold storage only. Again, the Hatfields own a crane business here, so they store their cables in there. They store a lot of their rigging, etc., in that cold storage area. Secondly, what we would like to do is this existing metal building that's on the north side of the building, what we'd like to do is extend the roof of that 20 feet and just provide an overhang. That overhang would allow us to store some equipment in there, to keep it out of the snow. A lot of timber would be stored under there.
Blocking and mats.
Timbers, blocking, mats, etc. So again, it's very straightforward. 1,500 square feet of a steel frame building, a 200 by 50 foot overhang, just extend the roof out. So you got 1,000 square feet for the roof and 1,500 square feet for the steel framed addition. As you can see, it's a very minor site plan amendment. What we are seeking here, or asking the board, is for a waiver of the full site plan review regs. Again, it's a very minor addition to the property here. You'll find if you go about there, the facility's in pretty decent shape. Out front here is some crushed stone, which is their parking area. To the west is some pavement that is used in their loading area where they drive the trucks into the building. And out back here is a gravel area, also used for storage. Mr. Chairman, that's the bulk of the proposal here. If you have answer any questions, and the Hatfields are here as well, if you have any specific questions about the business.
Okay, thank you. Let me start with a couple of questions regarding it looks like there's a sort of a berm-like that extends from the building toward the north, from the building to the edge of the property almost, or not quite to the edge of the property. Can you tell us how the present drainage, is that going to stay there, first of all? Is that planned to stay there, or is there any change proposed to that? How does that work with the use of this building? What's the access to this building, I assume, is in the back?
That's correct.
And that berm's okay there? Right?
The access to the existing building, the bulk of the building here, is to the west here. Access to the covered roof is going to be from the rear. Mm-hmm. And again, the access to the steel building will be from the rear. This area, these contours, most likely are not accurate. This is not a true existing conditions plan. This was part of the previously approved plan set. We didn't take the time or spend the money to retopo this site here. So these contours that you're viewing are from the previous survey. If you went out there today, you would find that berm that you're looking at in that area where that door is, it's not there.
What's the general drainage from this site? Does it go to that swale at the north side?
Yeah, it appears to flow to the north. There's a shallow riprap swale along the north property line right here.
Mm-hmm. And it drains into a 36-inch pipe? Is that
that's correct. That swale is probably about 70 or 80 feet to the north. And then it drains into
93.
The 36-inch RCP here, which goes under the driveway to the parcel.
Here you go, 99, yeah.
Okay. How far away is the railroad here? Is that another lot away? Is that 2 or 3 lots? Yeah. Okay, I have no further questions. From the board, questions? Oh,
He's standing there. There's enough work put up on the table. Just wants to try this. That should work.
all right, questions from the board on this plan? Mr. Shepherd?
Is there, for the access on the back, is that going to be via the gravel area, or is there going to be more pavement? I see an existing edge of pavement. I'm wondering what's directly to the north of that existing edge of pavement that's on the west side of the building?
Yeah. It's all gravel. Again,
all gravel.
The base plan, which these proposed buildings are superimposed on, is that of the old existing conditions plan. This area back through here is all gravel. So egress is right around the building.
So you're going to drive, continuing Mr. Shepherd's point, you're going to drive vehicles onto gravel to back into that building, or to unload materials into that building?
Correct. That again, this building and the covered roof area here is storage only. So the vehicles won't be stored in the building.
No, I understood that, but nonetheless, I would guess from some knowledge of cranes that you're going to have some fairly heavy materials. I mean, I was wondering if you're going to have a forklift truck or something going around there, in which case is gravel really the thing to be driving forklift trucks on? Unless you've got pneumatic tyres, they'll go down. I only asked the question.
No, it's fine. It is gravel today. Do you have any difficulties?
We have a rough terrain forklift.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you. Yeah, okay.
Okay, any other questions? Walter, does the staff have any recommendation to the board with regard to this plan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, that first off, the board take it to three separate actions.
Yes.
First, to accept the review, which the staff would support. The second is to grant the waiver of full site plan review, which the staff would also support. And the third item would be to, then I'll provide language if you'd like, support the amendment of previously approved site plan to allow the construction of a 30 by 50 building addition and a 20 by 50 roof extension from the existing metal building as shown on the plan dated November 10th, 2006, and that's the plan.
Okay. Are there any abutters or interested citizens who wish to comment to the board on a possible acceptance or approval of this plan? I see no one wishing to speak. What's the pleasure of the board? Dr. Segedy?
Move to accept the plan for review.
Okay, could we have a second to that motion, please? Seconded by Mr. Gagnon. Discussion on the motion to accept for review. See none. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed or abstaining? None. So the plan is accepted for review. I would now ask for a motion to approve the waiver of a full site plan review.
So moved.
Moved by Mr. Gagnon, seconded by Dr. Segedy. Discussion. All those in favor of this motion? Any opposed or abstaining? None. All were in favor, and the waiver of full site plan review is granted. And next for approval. Dr. Segedy.
Move to approve.
Move to approve. Do we have a second? Okay, seconded by Mr. Milnes. And discussion. No discussion. I'll call the question. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed or abstaining? None. All were in favor. The motion carries and the plan is approved. Thank you.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Simple, right?
There you go, sir.
It's fairly flat. That's fairly flat.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know that area better than most. I drove down it. I had a look.
The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 6. Mazzaglia, review for a possible disapproval of the site plan application proposing conversion of the upper level of a building from residential use to office use with associated site improvements in the I-1 Industrial District located at 251 DW Highway. The parcel lies within the Aquifer Conservation District. It's in tax map parcel 3D-2/040. My understanding from Mr. Warren is that this item, we have a request from the applicant to withdraw this plan at this time.
That's correct, Mr. Chairman. The applicants had some difficulty in trying to reconcile a number of the design issues involved, and rather than have it lingering around on the agenda, he's requested that it be withdrawn with the understanding that in all probability he'll bring it back once he's able to resolve these issues.
This requires no action from the board then at this time, is that
We
correct?
have his request for withdrawal in the file.
Okay. So no action by the board is required. Okay. If there was anyone here for that plan, I hope there were no abutters for that plan that had been waiting. I would have announced it earlier.
If and when that plan does come back, butters would be notified again.
It'll be a brand-new notification, brand-new application. Yeah. Any question from the board on any of the above? No. Okay. Then we'll take up item number 7 on tonight's agenda, which is Regency McDonald's Corporation. A discussion and a possible action on the request to waive the parking requirements found in Table 1 of Section 702 General Standards relative to a site plan application proposing the demolition of an existing structure to be replaced by a 3,330 square foot, 50-seat drive-through McDonald's restaurant with associated improvements. The parcel lies within the C2 General Commercial District and the Aquifer Conservation District. It's located at 5 Continental Boulevard, tax map parcel 4D/054-3. Okay, I'll recognize Attorney Michael.
Good evening again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members. We were before you a short while ago for acceptance of the modified McDonald's plan. If you recall, McDonald's made significant adjustments to the site, taking into account concerns that the board had. As part of that application was a waiver request for on-site/off-site parking. This is part of and abuts the balance of the Regency Center project where the current Shaw's is located, as well as other buildings and so forth that the board has approved. We brought it up at the acceptance meeting. We didn't get into all of the fine details of it. That matter had not been reviewed by your consulting engineer, specifically TEP, to take a look at, if you will, the request that was being made. VHB did submit a parking analysis study that has been reviewed by TEP. You do have a copy of their review comments before you. We believe it's important before we proceed with the final hearing on this matter to get the parking waiver issue resolved, since this does impact the project and how it might proceed. It's an important issue to McDonald's as well as Regency to get this taken care of. So that's really the purpose and the scope of why we're here this evening, was the reason for the request that we made. If you recall, Robin Bowers was with us at the acceptance meeting, and she took you briefly through it. She's prepared tonight to take you into detail regarding the appropriateness of the waiver, the fact that it will work. McDonald's is not in the habit of building facilities that won't work. They have a lot of experience, as this board is well aware, in developing sites throughout the world, not only in the United States, and they certainly have a pretty good handle on what works and what doesn't work, and they have no interest in doing this if it won't work. And the proposal here was to have 12 more or less off-site. When I say off-site, this is be the new roadway area that was approved as part of the second portion of the Regency plan. And there are 12 spots located as far away from the Shaw's as you could possibly find it. And generally, I say generally, this is open early in the mornings, well before Shaw's. The employees will be directed to park at this area. I mean, it is open parking in that sense, but these are more or less dedicated by virtue of the arrangements between Regency and McDonald's for McDonald's use for that or customer purposes. Again, as Robin indicated to you, they reviewed a number of different sites that work, different McDonald's sites that worked. And as you can see from TEP's review, they looked at the 84 requirement, look at the technical regulatory requirements that exist, and the 37 spaces that are proposed to be provided, and they quite frankly, they didn't have a problem with it. And I'm sure that they recognize that McDonald's does rely significantly upon drive-through, and I'm sure they've taken a look at many McDonald's and drive-throughs and fast food restaurants before in reaching their findings. So their findings are consistent with Robert Bowser's findings, and we're asking the board to take action on this so that we feel comfortable moving ahead with the balance of the plan. As I say, Mr. Chairman, Robin is here, John Cusick from Bowler Engineering is here as well to answer site questions if needed. But again, the focus today is to look at the parking, and then I'll stop talking for the moment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Attorney Michael. Ms. Bowser, did you want to address the board, or?
Would you like me to go through the report real quick?
Well, here's the thing. The board did receive a memorandum to Walter from yourself dated October 26th, which I think summarizes your position on this. Let me open for the board and ask if you would like Ms. Bowser to further summarize or further clarify or further elaborate on any of the data in that report. Dr. Segedy.
Yeah, I'd like to have a run through of it because some parts of it bothered me a bit.
Okay. Well, just real quick, when we left last time, I sort of felt as though we left you with more questions than answers as to what a 50-seat McDonald's is required for parking. So we said, let's really go out and let's collect some hard data so this board can make the decision based on information before them as opposed to just guessing what they need. We did pick 3 sites. There are 3 well-established sites. All 3 restaurants have been open for at least 8 years. And all 3 are very, very similar to what we're proposing here in Merrimack. They are out parcels, standalone out parcels with their own parking, adjacent to a shopping center that's anchored by a supermarket. So we think we have a really good comparison here of what you would expect to see in Merrimack. The 3 sites we picked are Boston Road and Billerica. And that restaurant has 66 and 27 parking spaces, so pretty close to what we're looking at here, but a little bit bigger in seat size. We monitor parking at all 3 of the sites on Saturday during the commute time peak hour from 11 a.m. to 1:30 p.m., which is when fast food restaurants and drive-throughs tend to generate the most amount of traffic. The Billerica site, actually, the peak amount of parking observed on site during that 2.5-hour period was 20 cars. And that occurred twice. So we monitored every 5 minutes. So twice we saw 20 cars in the lot of 27 spaces there. So not quite full. On average, they generated a parking demand of about 18 cars over the course of the 2.5 hours. The second site monitored was River Road in Haverhill. And that restaurant's a little bit smaller with 44 seats, but it has 32 parking spaces, so a little bit more than what we're looking at here for on-site itself. That facility saw a peak parking demand of 24, and that occurred only once during the 2.5-hour period. The average, again, at that site, similar to Billerica, was 18 cars. The third site we chose was Hanover Street in Manchester. This actually is probably the closest one in size. It's 58 seats and 22 spaces, but unfortunately, that site really generates a lot more drive-through customers than these other 2 facilities because the maximum peak is 9 cars. We did see it happen 4 times over the course of 2.5 hours, but there's only a peak of 9 cars, so that lot was never even close to being half full. We submitted this data to TEP, and we concurred with our findings that the 37 spaces allocated on the site plan should be more than adequate. One other thing, just to sort of put this into perspective with industry standards, ITE provides parking generation rates. The trip generation you use when doing studies, they do the same thing for parking. And if you look at a 50-seat fast food restaurant with a drive-through, it suggests that you would want to have about 20 spaces on this site. So comparing the 20 spaces for peak parking demand to the Billerica and Haverhill sites that we monitored, those numbers are all very consistent with each other. Our conclusion is that the 25 spaces on site here should be adequate, especially if McDonald's continues to do what they've said all along, is that they're going to allocate the employee parking in those 12 spaces in the center. If you do that, the 25 spaces provided on site is really going to be more than adequate to handle customer traffic.
Okay, thank you. Further question?
Yeah. Do you have any other sites that are of this nature out attached to a development, a shopping development?
I'm sure there are more. I mean, we just tried to pick 3 that we thought were the most similar in size, similar in type of location.
But there are no others that are similar size and.
Oh, I'm sure there are.
Okay, then why pick these three?
Well, we picked three because it costs a lot of money to do this type of annual data collection. So we limited it to issue three.
Okay, but why these three?
We felt they were the most appropriate, and would be the most similar
Okay,
situation.
so it's just the feeling that matters.
Yeah.
Okay. The second thing that disturbs me here is the averaging.
You're going to ask me about statistics again, aren't you? You did that once before.
Yes. Well, you're presenting things as to us in the lingo of statistics, and I rather like to see substance behind the lingo, and so we hope that you can provide it. What we don't have here, well, what day of the week was this taken on, first of all? This was taken on a Saturday.
Right. The highest generation for a fast food restaurant with a drive-through is Saturday midday peak hour. That's when the facilities are at their busiest.
Okay, and this was on which Saturday? The 14th? Somehow a 14th sticks in my mind, but maybe not.
It's Saturday, October 14th.
Correct.
That's what it says yeah.
Okay, so, and on this one day that, all of these were done on the same day, is that?
Correct.
Okay. Now, what we look for when we look for peaks is distribution in time, not just on the same day, but from week to week, because that's, if there is a worse time that is indeed consistent from week to week, then you have to look at the statistics for that particular time and see what's the variation from week to week, which is really more important in many ways than the distribution in time for one day, because we all know that at midnight there's not going to be anybody there, and at certain times there's going to be more than others. But when you take one particular day, what you have to find is the variation from one day to another. And
Well, we even selected the worst-case scenario from day to week. I think the data is all consistent with each other. The data is consistent with the ITE industry standard. Typically we don't go out and doing traffic counts. We don't do traffic counts at an intersection 3 or 4 times before we decide to change. It's similar with the parking inventory. We highly recommend to do this. It's labor intensive. It's a cost to anyone that has to do it. I think we've provided you with a fairly substantial database to base your decision.
okay, I can understand. I know, but yeah. Essentially, though, we just had data at one point, but you make a good point. It'd be very expensive to do several points.
And they chose from their estimate the worst case. And they did try and pick the worst case, and I think that's in their interest to do
We tried to
that.
pick the worst case before we had to come back to you, so we could
Okay, just pointing out that the data
And
could be a lot better, but it would be.
collect a lot more
But
data,
granted,
right?
it would be very expensive for
Right,
you to
it
do
is.
that. And,
Particularly if the results from these two stations, Ignore and Manchester, seem to bear out the statistic that you say for, I forget the acronym you use for the organisation that's got a base data. So it does seem they're reasonably supported by the study data thing that you talked about.
We felt it was right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Other questions, Mr. Jones?
I'm satisfied with the testimony that she has here, and And Billerica, Mass. and Haverhill, Mass. are about the same demographics as New Hampshire. And you can see that Manchester, who's one of the bigger cities, has much less traffic than those other cities. So, max of 24 to 20, and she's gonna provide 37. I think we're safe.
Yeah, we're very confident that if the employee parking is outside, they can manage the customers going down.
And make that part of the conditions we're going to approve.
Now, what happens with the employee parking when the next shift comes in?
Pardon?
You said in the morning, first thing in the morning, the employees would be parking in the off-site locations. Now, comes the change of shift, say 8 hours later or whatever it is, what happens then?
Well, number one, they won't use all 12 spaces for employees. A lot of their employees are teenagers who actually get driven to work and dropped off by their parents or friends because they know the cars are parked there. So they won't be utilizing all of those spaces. And I'm sure that they don't have, and folks from McDonald's in here that can give you more detail on it. I'm sure they don't have the entire staff to go at once.
It's a sort of...
I'm going to just clarify that. It's usually 1 or 2 at a time. It's staggered.
Oh, yeah.
They don't have everybody bail out at the same time.
It's going to be a disaster.
Yeah, okay, this
They have to
stagger.
wait for
It's
fries.
a slow
To wait,
transition.
fry later.
Okay, it's just that one item, though, about the teenagers not coming in cars. In my experience with teenagers, they'll come in cars. They will not be driven by their parents. They don't want to be seen in the car with their parents.
Mr. Shepherd had the next question.
I have a couple questions about the off-site arrangement. I think you spoke to it briefly, but what was the agreement with Regency? You said you had a meeting and they were in favor?
They're allowing, they're more or less allowing.
When you say allow, what does that mean? Is there any sort of an agreement, anything written down?
It's part of the lease.
It's part of the lease, okay.
It's part of the lease where they're allowed to this off-site parking right in this area that's closest to McDonald's and the furthest from Shaw's.
Okay. The second part of my question is, do any similar agreements exist on any of these other restaurants? Are there any other off-site parking for employees? So the reason I asked the question is because if there wasn't, then obviously these stores are handling the restaurant traffic and employee traffic.
I think everything's handled on site.
Yeah, the site, and that's one of the reasons we attach the site plans as to show that they are similar, that they are attached. But if you actually look at the layout of those parking lots, in retrospect to the overall shopping center, there's not convenient parking there. So I can't speak legally if there's leases because I don't know that for certain. But based on the observations that were made, there was no in-between back and forth to shopping centers. They're a little bit more remote. They don't have something as convenient as that located to them.
Okay.
And the folks that did do the data collection were instructed to watch for that because we know that's a situation that we're going to have here. We wanted everything similar, and we didn't get any notes of it at all.
You didn't. They were requested to
If
look
they
for
noticed
offsite.
people walking back and forth from the site, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.
We didn't ask this directly, but I think you implied that there will be cross easements here for this parking. There will be
They're going to have an easement.
an easement on that property.
On that
Yeah.
area, yes.
Okay. Yeah.
That's part of the lease now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You said it was part of the lease, and I just wanted to be sure it was an easement that got.
Well, it's an easement or lease right, whichever, right? It depends on what the final shootout is, who owns what. If you get an ownership interest here and it's not leased,
Yeah.
it would
That's
be,
what I was.
an easement. If it's under a lease, then the lease would include
Okay.
this particular.
So the
this
Regency.
area would be part of the
The
premises.
Regency owns both parcels
Yes.
now. Okay. I wasn't clear on that. Okay.
So,
That's
but I'm not. So
all right.
If McDonald's were to buy this, and I don't mean to
Then-
presume
yeah.
easement, if they
Then you
lease
would
it,
need-
this is part of the leasehold premises.
okay.
Does
Okay.
that help you?
Yes. Thank you. Okay.
Okay, so we would have to put that into any plan.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing,
Mr. Mills.
Mr. Chairman, if you read the TEP report, the last paragraph I thought was fairly significant as well. A bit of how delivery trucks are going to get off the site, because obviously that's, I would have thought, it's one of the things I get excited about. I take it that it is going to be a policy of the site that to the they're recommending is to have site operation policy that directs delivery trucks to exit via a left-hand turn only. Can I assume that's going to be policy, and that ought to be written into the deal?
That's part of the site plan approval, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. That's what it should be written in as a site plan approval.
Yeah. What we're asked for tonight is just to consider granting the waiver for the parking.
Oh, beg your
okay.
pardon.
That's the only thing we're acting on tonight because they want to go forward with the plan, comfortable that they're going to get this waiver before everything gets nailed down.
I shouldn't have brought that up, but
Okay.
but they'll know I'm going to next time, so they
They
might
know
as well get it.
it's a good. I'm sure they appreciate it.
You know where it's coming from.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
gave us the heads up. I appreciate that.
Mr. Warren.
We have two responses from TEP, one of which the board received in your packet, one of which you received this evening, Mr. Chairman, and I apologize we don't have copies for the rest of the board, but the response that we got from TEP this afternoon was specifically in response to Ms. Bowsa's report, and you might want to read it. I would just summarize and say that TEP basically concurs with the underlying assumptions and data collection presented by the AP in their analysis of the waiver.
Yes, I didn't read it because it is really a subset of the one that was handed to the board. The board had TEP's complete review, which reviewed other issues besides the parking.
Which is what I read.
Yeah, and so I think we're all clear on it at this point. I'll ask if there are any abutters or interested citizens who wish to comment to the board on a possible granting of this waiver. Oh,
I just had one quick question. You know, just the size of the McDonald's won't preclude having any birthday parties or anything because you have no play area there, right? These are just seats. It's not going to be a typical play area or anything like that, so there won't be any. No, I'm just for that size. It's just that because it won't draw any other, crowds or times of parking.
No, it's
Okay.
more of a standard McDonald's without that.
any other questions from the board? Walter, does the staff have a recommendation to the board with regard to this request?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. Based upon the review by TEP, the staff supports the granting of the waiver with two conditions. The first is the review of the legal documents reserving 12 off-site spaces by the board's review and approval by the board's legal counsel. And secondly, the posting via signage of the 12 off-site spaces being reserved for McDonald's use.
Okay. Do you have an objection? Yeah. Michael? No.
Certainly we're going to be allowed the legal use. The first part of it isn't the issue. The posting of signage could cause some issues with the current relationship that McDonald's is discussing with Regency. These are non-exclusive. We tend to fill them up with our employees, but they're not exclusive. And you can't, people park where they want to park. I don't mean to put it that way. But that could cause us some issues. I mean, if the board feels after hearing our final site review that something like that is needed for the purpose of that, we can certainly talk to Regency about it. But that would pose a problem right now for us. So I'm not going to misstate it. I'm going to state it as it is. And we would ask that not be a condition at this time. If the board feels compelled later at the time of our final acceptance, certainly we can talk about it further. But that would be a problem for us.
Okay. I think maybe at the time of final approval, we'd want to look at the overall parking on the Regency site. I think that's what Walter's getting at, is everything in balance here?
But the marking specifically poses a problem for us right now.
Yeah.
I'd be less than candid if I said otherwise. I respectfully request that not be included in this waiver.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Warren. Yeah.
If the use of those spaces would be exclusively for the benefit of McDonald's, why would signage pose a problem?
Well, they're not. In effect, we're allowed to come here and use these spaces, but they're non-exclusive in terms of if someone else happens to creep into one of these spots, we don't believe we can spaces.
Sure.
I mean, so
Signage would just be.
yeah, I know, but if that poses a problem right now with us with Regency, and again, I'm stating it categorically to you. You got another shot at this, so I'd like to leave it at that for the moment if we could.
I'll leave that to the board to say.
Dr. Siggety.
If we do not have signs there, we're not designating anything. It's just, we might as well say, hey, those places okay, aside from our employees parking there,
No, what it is, John, is this is these are different parcels, and this allows McDonald's the free use to comfortably have people, customers, employees, others associated with McDonald's to park here free of interference, free of someone saying, hey, you're trespassing on my property. It's not exclusive, and we've done this, there have been a number of approvals that the board has done. The old Hilton Hotel site, and there's not exclusive parking on the far side of the D'Angelo's area, which is a non-exclusive. In other words, you're given the right to use this area for parking. The likelihood of this being used for anything else is small. It's remote from the shops. You know where it is. You've done it. So basically, we're encompassing and bringing this in as a right. In other words, a right that this site has to use these spots, in a sense, unfettered. But it's not so exclusive that others couldn't use them either in terms of the overall Regency Center. And I agree with the chairman, your chairman. I think a look at Regency as a whole may be helpful. But I'm just trying to describe that this is, in a sense, a non-exclusive right, but they're allowed to, in effect, trespass on this property legally. And that's the idea of the off-site parking agreement. I'm just trying to frame it for you as best I can.
My thought is that somebody who wants to go to McDonald's may not realize that these spots are associated with McDonald's, and therefore go in and be looking for a parking space right on the McDonald's site and mess up the parking situation and people pulling in and out and so on. Whereas if there's signs there, then, oh, hey, I can't make it, I can see that's all crowded there, I'll just stop over here.
As a practical matter, we believe the site itself has sufficient parking based upon the reports and reviews. Let's start there.
Well,
and most of the time it will be employees pulling in directed to use these spots. They'll be here well before anybody at Shaw's. They'll be cycling in here on and off during the day. We believe that's really the real world view of these spots. And that allows us, legally, the ability, if you will, to allow that to occur. As a practical matter, John, let's be very candid about this. If I happen to be parking here and I want to go to McDonald's, very likely I'm going to walk over to it. I mean, that's just the way it is. I mean, you've got adjoining lots, you've got adjoining businesses, and oftentimes people will park in a lot, walk over a barrier to use a store in another spot. We believe that this meets fairly embraces what McDonald's needs, what we think works. And again, the employees are the ones that will be directed more or less, and other people could come across, park here, and walk. It's convenient to do it that way. But on balance, we believe the site will support us. So this is really a kind of an extra thing to move the employees and to give us the right. So if someone from Shaw's saw someone park here and walk across to McDonald's, they're not going, wait a minute, you've got people coming to our parking lot, parking, using our facilities to
realistically, has this ever happened?
Realistically,
I mean, I've done that myself many times. And
I know. Realistically, John, it really isn't a problem. We're doing our best to show you what we can have available for this particular site. We believe it works. But, marking it right now poses a problem. And again, I'm not hiding behind that. And I would hope that the board wouldn't approve it that way.
Mr. Gagnon?
I guess I'm very comfortable with the site, considering you've looked at the worst-case scenario. But I think probably for an added measure of comfort, some of the board members, where your peaks are from McDonald's. Mm-hmm. And you could also very easily determine how the peaks for the adjacent site, the Regency site, would occur. Mm-hmm. That might conflict with, and I say might conflict with the McDonald's peaks, if you will. I don't see that is really critical because I believe there's enough parking on the site. But nevertheless, you're showing some off-site parking. It's not encumbered in any way. So subsequently, will it work? And I think you can answer that question by looking at both peaks for both sites.
Okay. Well, certainly look at that, but I'm looking. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. We're looking for a waiver tonight.
Yeah. Well,
marking it. In terms of marking it.
No, I don't mean to use that argument to block your waiver. I think you can go ahead without it, but you can provide additional information when you come back to how exactly that's going to work.
Another possibility here, I don't know if it makes you uncomfortable, Attorney Michael, but a sign on the site itself that says overflow parking available across the street or something like that.
That's an interesting suggestion. I haven't explored that, but that might work quite well, Mr. Chairman.
That might satisfy everybody.
That might solve
Yeah.
everybody's problem.
So the person drives around a loop and he can't find a parking place, there's a sign there that says go across the street.
Hadn't thought of it, thank you.
Yeah.
I really have.
Just a thought,
appreciate it.
yeah.
It's a good thought.
Just solve the problem.
Thank you, Councilman.
Well, what's the pleasure of the board? I guess would be the question. That would be something we'd put on the site plan at the time we approve it.
I have a question on that. That
Yes.
wouldn't be something we'd put as a condition? I mean, it sounds very similar to the condition we were considering.
So the waiver.
It's something,
We don't have a problem with that.
yeah. Okay, we could put it on this,
It's just a question on that.
We don't have a problem with that.
okay, either place.
Yeah,
Then
that this is more for, they should know where they're able to go from here, not be held up with uncertainty about the board's view, since this is one of the significant problems with the site. So
So you can make that a condition if you wish.
Can I have the condition read again? What was it again?
The condition was, there were two conditions: the review of the legal documents reserving the 12 off-site spaces by the board's legal counsel, and the second condition, which the applicant's legal counsel has taken issue with, is the posting via signage of the 12 off-site spaces being reserved for McDonald's use. And the suggestions were made that perhaps that condition be replaced with a sign on the McDonald's property referring patrons across the way to the off-site spaces.
Presumably very much in the same way that the Buckley Steakhouse does, refers to the parking spaces on Abbott's Superette.
Yeah, yeah.
Same principle, which
Same thing, yeah.
Is it not, Walter?
The difference is, and staff's concern is, that there are a number of cross easements for parking and other access purposes
Already.
within this entire subdivided, this project, if you will. And it's a concern to the staff over time that we not be counting parking spaces 2, 3, 4, perhaps more times.
Yeah, understood.
As various uses get situated within the center. We have situations like that that exist in town, where in order to accommodate one tenant, that may have a higher parking ratio than our average figure, other tenants within the center are being compromised. I have discussed this item with the representatives of Regency and requested that as each use gets locked down within a tenant space, that a separate parking analysis be done, so that we're assured that there'll be relatively the right amount of parking, and so that as the owners of this plaza, they know where their trade-offs are in terms of accommodating one tenant, perhaps at the expense of another. So that was our only consideration in recommending signage of these spaces, but we will track these spaces in the bottom line analysis as other uses come in for the center.
Was Regency amenable to your proposal, the sort of thing you just spelt out then, that each usage gets locked down, they would do a review of the parking?
Yes, and they are used to doing that elsewhere, and it will become more important as there's a churn among tenants within the plaza over time.
Yeah.
You have a dry cleaner move out and a Chinese restaurant move in.
You've got them both at the minute. Yeah.
Different parking requirement for each.
So on the overall plan, as it's being developed, as the phases are being developed of this entire property, that on that large plan, that each use or each segment of that phase would be designated, the parking spaces would be designated, these are counted as this use and this is counted as that use. Is that basically what we're looking at?
When the original plaza was approved, it was approved with an average parking ratio of 5.5 per thousand for general retail uses. General retail covers a pretty broad category, So that as each use comes in, we would ask them to just run a quick recalculation of the parking requirements based upon the actual tenants, not imaginary tenants, in order to make sure that we still had a reasonable parking available for all the users of the center.
So what you mean is the actual uses
Yes.
and their occupied parking spaces as accountable for the spaces that they have total.
Well,
Okay.
the actual uses and the projected parking demand based upon our best knowledge and ITE and other recommended sources. Regency is at a disadvantage here because they don't know who each tenant is going to be right now. So we're projecting it forward based on an average retail figure of 5.5 per thousand or whatever the approved number was. We would like to make sure as staff that as there's tenant turnover, that we're not really overutilizing or overcounting that parking.
Well, you don't want to count spaces 2 or 3 times.
Correct. The board can make that type of concession if they like, because we do allow for cross easements and for shared parking arrangements. But I think we'd be wise to just know it when we're doing it.
Yeah, well, I agree with that. Yeah, totally.
So I guess, well, at the end of the day here, do you have an objection to the board approving this with the condition as I suggested it from the?
No, I don't. I think we can revisit it.
Yeah. Okay. Okay.
Future site plan.
Okay. Thank you. What's the pleasure of the board now? Mr. Shepherd?
Make a motion that we grant the waiver with the adjusted conditions.
The 2 conditions. One of them, the first one having the review by town council, the legal documents, and the other being the
On-site sign.
on-site sign advertising.
Now, second that, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, it was seconded by Mr. Milnes. And do we have discussion of the motion, Dr. Segedy?
Okay, well, I'm really pretty concerned about this. When we look at the data they've supplied us with on, it's a very limited amount of data, but we still hit a 20 as the number of parking spaces filled, and there's sometime in October. With a lot more people out and around shopping, you might very well find as we head into December it to go over that. Even without going into December for that, just on statistically, sometimes you're going to get more than the 20 as the max if you ran that experiment a number of times. Sometimes you get more, sometimes you get less. And it doesn't take too much more to get to 25. And you can see that even if you go by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, their view is peak period parking demand is 33 spaces. So we're cutting it pretty close here.
We've got 37.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
But
yeah.
we are cutting it close. So it's I think a little tight, and
The worst thing that could happen, I think, is somebody would drive over to Burger King, which is right across the street.
Or go down a half a mile to the next McDonald's.
I do share some concern, but my concern is that our parking regulations are based on the size of the restaurant, when it's really the traffic to the site that's going to be more of a factor. Like if you put the same size McDonald's somewhere else, it's going to have a much different parking requirement than it does right here. And I don't know. I feel kind of comfortable with the sites that they've chosen as being similar parcels as far as the numbers go.
it's like I say, it's something that we, in an ideal world, would have much better data on, but we can't get it. And I think it's just for discussion. I think it's kind of tight.
Okay, other discussion of the motion? Mr. Gagnon?
We've gone through this once before with the competitor Burger King. whether or not parking would take place from the hotel into the Burger King lot to the hotel, adjacent commercial uses, cross easements for parking, and including parking for buses, which was very, very attractive from the turnpike to get buses down there. That worst case scenario never materialized. There was always adequate parking there for everybody even during all the peaks. So, as I say, I look at the numbers and I'm saying, yeah, deja vu all over again, but I believe that this is going to work. There's a few little glitches that I think can be taken care of.
Okay, any other?
I would mention, though, that the bus problem, I was told that the bus problem, the buses didn't materialize because of the tolls. Yeah.
Yeah. So we looked at that also. That only added a lot more space.
Other discussions? Ready for the question? All those in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Any opposed or abstaining? None. All were in favor. Motion carries. The waiver is granted. Okay, thank you. Walter, just for our edification here, when do you think this plan will be coming forth for final review by the board? Will it be January or?
I want to hear his comment on that. I want to hear that.
How hungry are we feeling tonight?
No.
Very good McDonald's around the corner.
Probably mid-to-late January.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Thank you for coming in with the whole staff here.
Mr.
Okay.
Chairman, I would just like to make one comment about, these things about that we have about, the national standards and everything. These weren't taken into account when we devised our parking regulations.
They were or were not?
They were, definitely. Yeah, we took all the best information around, and it was battled back and forth. And you can be sure that Nelson Disco wasn't going to let something go through with too many parking spaces, because Nelson never found a paved piece of a business that he liked.
It's true. There's a trade-off always in parking and creating lots that are huge and then they're not necessary and not being used, and they just create excessive runoff and other forms of pollution that is really not good, and they take away from landscaping and from
people knock down trees.
Beautification, that's why.
The less black asphalt, the better.
Yeah, that's the other side of this. But on the other hand, you've got a park too.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. The next item on the agenda tonight is item number 8, OmniPoint PCS Wireless Communication Tower, approval of a tower removal bond in the amount posted for property located at 43 Babusick Lake Road, tax map parcel 5D-3001. This item was continued from the November 14th meeting, November 14th, 2006. Do you have the request form here? You all may recall that Tom Koenig, and I'm sorry he isn't here, raised the issue of escalation over time with these bonds. And a little bit of research we did quickly, looking, first of all, in our regulation, it requires the staff to review these every 5 years to assure that they are sufficient, and if not, to raise the amount. The first of these is almost ready. The first 5-year period of the first towers we put up with that regulation is coming due in about another year or so, I think, according to our calculations. So there is an escalator built into the regulation when we wrote it, and I just didn't remember it when Tom asked me off the top of my head.
So,
I mean, a method of escalation, I should say. Yeah.
So in a year from now, when next year, are we to revisit as the board, or the staff to review it and get a bond, a reasonable bond from a contractor to dismantle
the staff
and remove?
Yeah.
So it's a staff
Yeah.
issue after the acceptance?
Yeah, remember the basics are all there.
Right.
It'd be a matter of new rates, labor rates or whatever that apply to, yeah.
And I can provide just a little more background. Specifically within the zoning ordinance is a requirement for a 5-year review of sufficient bond escrow funds for the power. All told, we are holding 9 of these bonds. Actually, 3 are beyond the 5-year period. They were posted in 1988, 1995, and 1998. So in discussing this with staff, in the wake of the questions that came up at the last meeting, letters will be sent to those tower owners informing them that we require them to redocument the amount of the bond. For them not to do so would be a violation of their site plan, and we would
Go out with a hacksaw and bring the tower down.
right. We would take appropriate action.
And you want to get lynched by
All the other
all
bonds,
those
the
cell
other 6
users.
bonds that we're holding, all are within that 5-year period, and with the implementation of this
So
notification.
that's built on a tickler file that's going to come up in,
Yes.
Maybe you can tell us offhand, or maybe you should look into whether our regulations really suggest that, it says that the board approves the amounts. Now, when the amount gets raised, does that mean the board has to approve it again? It may be or may not be. Maybe staff can look into the regulations and
I think that's
make it clear.
Specifically speaking, the board is charged with authorizing, if you will, or approving the amount of the bond. The board can, in a situation like this, delegate that to the staff in terms of the escalator clause.
That's what I had in mind. If the regulations now are, I don't think when we wrote them we had escalator clauses in mind. As far as
Well, we had review of it every 5 years.
but I mean, as when we said the board is going to approve these, I didn't have in my mind that the approval was a recurring thing.
Yeah.
So maybe we should take a look at the wording and see whether the board has to look at it on a recurring basis or not, and then maybe, if we do, maybe we'll discuss whether or not we should delegate this.
Okay. For now, I think it says that it comes to the board. So I think what Walter will do, will go out and get a new estimate on those which are over the 5-year limit and bring them back to the board. And if the board finds it becomes a...
For a longer-term view of things, as more cases come in, the board may want to delegate. And we should look at that and take a look at the...
And they would come to you with, as stamped bond estimates along with a recommendation from...
the usual way.
Just like this one, which is the one we're going to be asked to act on this evening, which is to approve a tower removal bond for the OmniPoint PCS wireless telecommunications in the amount of $22,417.36 for the site American Legion Post 98 at 43 Bipusik Lake Road. So, Mr. Jones?
The scope of that bond for removal, is that the removal and disposal, or not just the removal and laying flat the tower from falling on somebody's head?
Remove, haul, and dump demo material. So it's removed salvaged to an OmniPoint warehouse. So, and final cleanup of the site. So it's removal from the site, partly to the dump and partly to OmniPoint warehouse, or its equivalent. And final cleanup of the site. So, does that answer your question?
Well, sort of, because the tower, the apparatus is owned by OmniPoint, which they could probably dismantle any of these and move them somewhere else. The thing is, there's a pretty massive footings for the towers that are in ground. It doesn't call for removal of the footings, does it, here?
dispose of concrete, let's see here, this disposal of concrete is in here.
They're concrete footings, aren't they?
Yeah. Remove the concrete pad,
No, it doesn't.
remove the cable and bridge posts, remove the power intelligent, remove the meter bag and frame, remove the CFL, remove the antenna, remove the cables, remove the batteries, crane rentals, silt fences.
So it's,
I think it's all here.
Return it to green and pasture.
The risk of the
doesn't say about turning it back to green. Just
no,
says
it doesn't.
removing it, but the little hole.
It was never our intention to do that. Our intention was to reduce the danger of the thing falling over. If
Limit the liability of the town
liability
to have a
the
tower
town.
standing.
That was, and I think that's thoroughly
I
covered
think
by this.
I think that's
by these
extremely
items.
adequate for what we have there. Yes.
So would you like to make a
How
motion?
should we like that?
Yeah.
Oh, I just
Dr.
wanted to
Segedy.
bring up other things. Suppose they sell the tower.
Suppose they do. This bond still applies. I mean, the bond goes with the
Okay.
tower.
But part of the bond said remove to an omni-point storage
No,
facility.
I think we would have to use some intelligence there and remove it to the proper owner. The intent here is to remove it to the owner.
To be honest, John, if they tried to sell it, that bond is against Omnipoint. If they had to sell it, anybody selling that tower to Company B would insist that Company B provided the replacement bond so that they could get their bond back. Otherwise, they're still stuck with that bond.
Yes, that's true.
They would actually insist that the new company provided us with an alternative bond which would have Company B's
prior
name.
sale.
So before the sale would be done, no bill of sale would go through without it.
right.
So I don't think that's an issue.
I don't think that
No
would be a
company
problem.
would
Correct.
have a brain would want to do that.
Other discussion? Could we have a motion? Dr. Segedy? Move to approve the bond in the amount
I
of
have submitted.
$22,417.36.
I'll second.
Seconded by Mr. Gagnon. He's got it there.
No, you got it.
You got
Oh, he
it?
did? Okay.
He had his hand up.
Mr. Jones has seconds. Do we have discussion? All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed or abstaining? None. All were in favor. The bond amount is approved. Finally. The next item on tonight's agenda is item number 9, a discussion, possible action regarding other items of concern. I have one thing I would like to bring to the board's attention. And you have a letter, draft letter, Steve, that I would like the board to look at. I received, during our, last week we didn't have a meeting, and the week prior to that I received a hurry-up email from Andy Powell, who is the chairman of the Merrimack Conservation Commission, advising that the Merrimack Conservation Commission had entered into a purchase and sale agreement with the Campo heirs for a parcel of land known as Parcel 5B/11, which is that 84-acre parcel of land located just to the north of the new middle school property, containing, now or formerly containing a couple of very large beaver ponds and some adjacent uplands, but one of the beavers' ponds has been abandoned by the beavers and is now going into meadow, as they say in the trade, meaning that it's gradually going to grow back into open space. The Campo heirs, anyway, as I said, the Conservation Commission has entered into an agreement with the Campo heirs to purchase this. They have the money in their funds that they've received through the transfer of property. The current use tax back payments go to the Conservation Commission for this kind of purpose. This piece of property is in the area of the 500-acre tract that was identified in the master plan of the town. When we did our master plan, we identified 2 large tracts that we had hoped could be preserved intact as large tracts for wildlife habitat and natural uses. So those are, and they're cited here. So I drafted up this little letter. I did not send this letter because he wanted the approval from the planning board. He wanted the agreement by the planning board, and they had their hearing last night. So I went and testified on my own behalf in favor of the master plan and suggested that I could get this memo to the Merrimack Town Council, because the Merrimack Town Council has to approve the actions of the Conservation Commission in purchases such as this, and they will be acting on this on the 14th of December. And what I would like is some action from the board that would endorse this type of letter, or if, get your red pens out and have at it if you wish. But this is, and I have a map here of the parcel. If you all aren't familiar, it's sticky. You see there are some adjacent parcels here. This brings the total in this parcel to about 400 acres. This is what's called the Greater Woods. This is currently owned by the town of Merrimack, the Greater Woods land. This parcel here, adjacent to BB Lane, okay, yeah, the waterway generally, this water goes that way, and then there's another waterway in here that goes into Babusick Lake. This is the school property here, as you can see.
Where's Madeline Bassett?
Madeline Bennett is right here.
Madeline Bennett, I beg your pardon.
Oh, this is Bambi Trail. I'm sorry, Madeline Bennett is right there. That little stub, that's Madeline Bennett. That goes out to Babusick Lake Road.
Yeah, I know.
The school building sits right here.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and this is the school property. But the school property has dedicated a conservation easement over a large part of this backland that they're not using as part of the conservation. And this is the parcel in question. This is
Parcel in green.
The parcel in green is the question that we're being asked.
5B11.
The north of the school. Yeah.
It would be asked to support the purchase of.
Now, is that something that does not have to go to the town for approval? It already is designated monies because
It has to go to the town
conservation?
council. The town council
council.
has the authority, as I understand it. Yeah.
Okay, so it doesn't need a public hearing or anything?
They had a public hearing, their first public hearing last night. There'll be another public hearing when the town council acts, but that will be part of their normal meeting, as I understand it. Will be part of their normal meeting, which will occur. Mr. Warren, I'm saying something wrong.
The council will be dealing with the matter in a public meeting, but it won't be a public hearing.
Okay.
The Conservation Commission is authorized to negotiate to acquire these pieces of property. In order to expend the funds to acquire, they need council authorization to draw those funds.
To draw the funds to, so that the warrant article, whatever is it, no, well, the warrant is for money, but the authorization is already in place for this type of action to happen.
The funds that will be used to acquire the property are already deposited from the funds.
Right, so there is no additional
No direct
taxpayer incumbent money or anything.
I have to say, I think this is a great acquisition. This piece of property really is a hole in the donut. In that area, it provides some wonderful natural and wildlife habitat experiences, if you will, for the school. The school entity is very excited about using it as an outdoor laboratory. It really is a key piece of property.
It's a keeper.
Dr. Segedy.
Move to approve the sending of this memo
With
no changes.
Well, we're going to actually put it slightly different. So what we actually say is the planning board, I would propose that the planning board supports the chairman's actions in sending a letter, because as we've approved it, the whole thing, I think.
Yeah.
And I'd like to add and amend that to that we unanimously approve.
Yes, thank you.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I have to withdraw my motion because this memo says at tonight's meeting we voted to endorse and support the purchase.
That's why I said what we did.
Okay, so
Unanimously.
okay, and I would move to have such a vote, and if it is
Turns out to be unanimous.
as suggested by Alistair, that would.
Okay, can we have a
Insert the
second to
word
Dr.
unanimous.
Segady's
I'll
motion?
second that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Is there discussion?
Yes. I just want to state that, in my view, this was very well prepared and brings up a lot of the pertinent information in the history related to that site and how important it is to not only to the town-owned land, but to surrounding land uses. And Nelson did a very good job of researching the appropriate sections to get us there.
Oh,
And
Your master plan.
he put it together without using too many words.
Yes, I couldn't have done that.
All those in favor of this
Aye.
motion? Any opposed or abstaining? It was a unanimous vote of the board. Let the record show it was a unanimous vote.
Good job.
That's the only one more thing I had for this evening. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned?
We have a
Oh, sorry.
another item for the end here, discussion if possible. Just wanted to bring to the board's attention that the last meeting we had has been recorded and put on the internet. Essentially, the broadcast on the public on the town's TV station was recorded by somebody using a TiVo type device and placed on Google Video, which is a lot like YouTube video, if anybody's aware of that. But essentially that means that the meeting is not just accessible when it's broadcast or via the minutes, but anybody can watch the entire meeting, speed through it, send references to indexed portions of the movie. So somebody could send a link in an email very easily that said, on this date at this time, Dr. Segedy said this, and it would be a link where they would click, and it would bring up the video of the meeting at that point where they could witness what was said right there. I just thought that we would be interested that our board is like one of the first ones to be put up there, and it was all done by a private citizen. It was not something that the TV station did. The TV station broadcast it, somebody recorded it and posted it, and it's completely available for public use.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah.
Does that breach of copyright?
I don't know.
There's a public meeting.
There's a lot of things on YouTube and Google Video where the copyright is highly questioned.
Unless it's altered in any manner.
It could be, you see, could be altered.
That's the problem.
The
Very
interesting
easily.
thing.
It's completely
It can
controlled
be-
by a private
It
citizen.
can be manipulated. Yeah.
Can we
Yeah.
get to know who the private citizen is?
Um,
Who was supposed to be?
I don't think you can tell officially. I think it was I forget his name, Nat, who runs the unofficial forum online. I'm not sure if he did it. I think he did, and I don't think there's any way where you can officially track down through, because I'm pretty sure you can sign up and post anonymously this information. So as far as any sort of, I don't know what the legal ramifications are. The reason I bring it up
Yeah.
is just so we know.
No, it's
You're all
very.
online.
Thank you for bringing it up, Matt, because I think it's important that we all know and all bear in mind. People do take things that we say out of context, and
Yeah.
that isn't going to prevent